So the energy trilemma is really about energy security, it's about energy affordability, and also about energy sustainability. And how do we find that right balance is really to do it at the pace that every government and citizens are ready for.
China is very big on EVs. Huh?
Right.
What kind of charging technology they have?
Actually, China has a very deliberate EV policy for the almost 10 years, since 2015 or 2016. What they have done is they have focused not just on the customers, but also on infrastructure.
Maybe we go into the trend of mobility first, the needs and the development, and how do you see this picture in 5 to 20 years?
There are three words I would use. The first is really about development. The second is about decarbonization. And the third is about digitalization. We need to find the right balance between development and decarbonization. But you asked about trends. The other trend that is big for us, not just in the mobility sector, is digitalization.
Since we talk about the mobility trends, it's essential for goods and human movement. For this trend, and then we are so worried, the world is quite overwhelmed with global warming. So it's kind of contradicting each other. So how do you see this would impact on energy consumption and the in thing that we talk about, new energy?
I think it is a very important question because right now, when it comes to the energy topic, we need to recognize that we are constantly grappling with the energy trilemma. So the energy trilemma is really about energy security, it's about energy affordability, and also about energy sustainability. And how do we find that right balance is really to do it at the pace that every government and citizens are ready for. But coming back to mobility as a business and a sector, to me, this is a very local business. It means that we need to understand the supply and demand of our customers and find a way to reach out to the right segment of the customers in order to provide what is needed. And so when you talk about the direction that we are taking, for us, looking at what we are doing in Singapore, what we are doing to reach 100% cleaner energy vehicles by 2040, that is an aspiration that we are very supportive. And we want to ensure that we are not just talking, but also acting and be on the front foot of change. And that also means that we will also need to provide more than just what we see 10 years ago, but also start thinking and innovating and trying to provide also the future requirements on e-mobility, as in EV charging, and perhaps even in future hydrogen later on. I think it's good that you mentioned about it not being green enough for batteries. Hydrogen to me is an area that we also are looking at and evaluating constantly. Right now, we see hydrogen to be more for heavier vehicles. And so you will notice that it is not as ready as EVs in most places. So in order to make this journey actually viable, we will be focusing our resources where we have competitive strengths. And even for EVs, it is a very good point. That is the reason why we have recently partnered with Energy Market Agency in Singapore, EMA. So what we have done in 3 of our stations is not just provide the charger. We have also ensured that we are actually using 100% renewable energy to run the charging. And this includes the solar energy that we have put on the rooftop. And together with that, the smart energy system allows us to tap 100% renewable certificate plus solar power in order to provide green energy. In fact, one of our commitments in Shell is not to just look very far away in 2050. In 2030, we also committed to reduce our scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions by 50%. Right now, we are about 60% way. So I believe very strongly that by 2030, we will hit our target, which is a short-term target to show that it can be done.
You talk about EVs. What kind of imagination you have on EVs in terms of technology or even the future trends?
I think the EV industry is still very young. When you look at the evolution of EVs right now, we are making different moves. For example, we have recently bought Ubitricity. Ubitricity is a UK company. And the reason why we do that is because we are in a hurry. We want to do things very fast, but we also learn that many things are also done elsewhere. So we acquired this company in order to provide lamppost charging. Why? Because we recognize that many customers do not have home charging. And the most convenient way is actually to park the car next to a lamppost in the UK and take advantage of the electricity from the lamppost to charge their car. And so they can leave their cars overnight, charge it, pay some parking fee, and pay electricity, a little bit of electricity bill, and they can drive off. So these are the innovations that we are trying to provide. We also work very closely to learn from our partners. BYD is one of our partners, and we learn a lot from them in terms of customer experience, in terms of the speed of charging that is required, the kind of vehicles that we need to cater for. We need to take into account high-speed charging, low-speed charging, overnight charging, and so on, so that we provide all the possibilities for even this segment. But you might not realize that globally today, about 50% of EV charging is at home or in businesses. Another 35% is public charging, and 15% is at fleet level. That means the fleet companies. In about 10 to 20 years' time, the mix will change. There will be more public charging, maybe about 45% in future. We expect the home charging to come down to about 30%, and then the rest are fleet charging. So if we understand the trend of EV charging, we will need to cater to different sectors while continuing to cater to what is required for conventional refueling, conventional fuels.
So how do you see the development of battery technology also? Is it possible that one day we can do away with charging?
Looking at energy trend, we would expect batteries to be smaller and longer lasting. But we are right now partnering with different OEMs, original engine manufacturers. These include companies like NIO, BYD, Hyundai, Mercedes-Benz, and so on. And we are learning from them. And the reason for that is because it is not just about charging, it is possibly about battery swapping. And you could even drive a car to a battery swapping workshop, and then below, at the bottom of the car, you can have the replacement. But battery swapping is also an important sector that we cannot ignore, especially when you need something that's light and easy to charge. So like two-wheelers like scooters or motorcycles, if you're in India or Thailand, you need to think about how do we replace these electric batteries, these batteries in electric scooters or electric motorcycles. So we provide the facility to do that, to replace the batteries and quickly charge it, and they can move on.
Battery swapping. Isn't it better for Singapore, instead of using, installing all these charging stations, because we are so limited by space?
I think this really depends on the market and also perhaps the limitations that we have. We have assessed and evaluated different options. And I start from Shell first. What we are definitely ready and willing to do is to support all choices that the motorists want. At the same time, we also recognize the limitations that we have. The limitation is space, and the limitations is also the number of locations. And so it takes time to do battery swapping. Over time, if you have high-speed chargers, the speed of charging will be even faster. But battery swapping will require space and will also require efficiency in making the change, which means that we need to think about queues for the vehicles if they want to do battery swapping in stations. And that is going to be quite a challenge. And so when you look at what we have done in Singapore, we decide that we will participate very actively in the recent HDB tender. That was about a year plus ago, where the HDB tender allowed us to win one of the 5 plots. And we will be able to support the northeastern part of Singapore and provide about 5,000 charge points in the next few years.
HDB sounds.
HDB car parks. We also believe a lot in partnerships. We partner Porsche and invested in over 50 high-speed charge points from Singapore to Malaysia to Thailand. And that to me is also not just a show, but a commitment of what we believe that can work. Just like you can pump and fill up your petrol and drive all the way north-south highway to Malaysia and to Thailand, you can also do that through charging and EVs. So we are the first across the border, 2 borders, and so we are able to do that only because of partnership. That's why in this decarbonization story, while we want to handle development and the quality of life for people, and at the same time decarbonize because of climate change urgency.
Just so you take example of UK, right?
Yes.
It's so-called pole charging. You charge your car
Lamp
using the
charging.
lamp pole. Huh?
Yes.
What about other cities? Let's say China is very big on EVs. Huh?
Right.
What kind of charging technology they have?
Actually, China has a very deliberate EV policy for the almost 10 years, since 2015 or 2016. What they have done is they have focused not just on the customers, but also on infrastructure. What they have done is they have supported the EV manufacturing industry. They have also supported battery technology makers. On top of that, they are also looking at how they give incentives to motorists, so the customers in itself. And last but not least, of course, is the infrastructure. Because the infrastructure is also something that's new to the world. And only in the last 5 to 7 years do we start looking at infrastructure. So it is not just about EVs, but also infrastructure. And what has China done is provide the right incentives. And over the last 8 years, from 2016, I noticed that they have about 2% of new EVs sold. By next year, we expect about 25% of new EVs sold. So you can imagine the exponential curve. It also means that by 2030 or nearer to 2030 or before, I expect the policymakers to step away and let it be more market-driven. Because in order to support such a big and nascent sector, they provided the necessary incentives to make the industry grow and to make the industry thrive. So this is what I think it has been done very deliberately. And they also allow innovation. They also allow different ideas to come up. And right now, even BYD has become the largest EV manufacturer in the world. It is larger than Tesla. Tesla was there maybe 2 years ago, and now it has overtaken without even BYD being really big in the US.
You strike a very important keyword, partnership.
Yes.
But then we see that geopolitics and local politics at play. Huh?
Yes.
So how would this impact on partnership that we,
Right, right.
treasure so much?
It is a valid question. We believe as a start, the topic of decarbonisation is a topic that is larger than any company, larger than any country. And so regardless of the topics of politics, this is a topic that as a company and even personally, we believe very strongly. And we will support it and ensure that we will adapt according to the country that we are serving or supporting. Depending on their policies, we will adapt accordingly to do so. I think the definitely one of the aspects is how we have the policies, and a supportive policy that provides the right incentives at the start is very important. I think the China story is a very good example of how in less than 10 years, this has become such an important sector. And I know that our government is looking at this earnestly to try to grow it. In fact, I think we are not in a bad place. We are doing this at pace and not rushing also too quickly, because we need to look at how technology evolves and also have the right policies that support the basic essential needs of the citizens, which is about the mobility of goods and people. It's about affordability. And that to me is a very important point, because once we have achieved a certain level of energy security, trilemma topic, then we need to ensure that there is affordability, and at the same time, don't wait too late to tackle the sustainability. So it is trying to find that right balance in order to have the growth properly and sustainably. But one aspect we sometimes forget is the technical readiness. For example, when we talk about electricity, the power area also needs help. Our power grid may not be ready. So if we have too many chargers in the HDB car park, it will be a problem. So we need to be able to work together in partnership in order to make the charging work. So EV charging is a big topic, but at the same time, the infrastructure needs to be ready. And most importantly, in my point of view, is about acknowledging that no one party can solve this problem.